So, first of all, I think we'll all come up now, if that's all right. And I will introduce Judy Wicks, who is an international leader and speaker in the local living economies movement. Judy is co-founder of the nationwide Business Alliance for Local Living Economies, BALLE. And she's also the founder of the White Dog Cafe in Philadelphia, which is a renowned model of direct farm purchasing and sustainable business practices. Judy took the initiative to this very exciting business alliance that David Corden spoke about in the film, BALLE, Business Alliance for Local Living Economies. And she's been featured widely in media ranging from Nightline to Yes Magazine. Stacey Mitchell, who's in the middle here, is a senior researcher for the New Rules Project of the Institute for Local Self-Reliance that challenges the wisdom and inevitability of economic consolidation and works to advance policies that support strong local economies. I've seen some of Stacey's writing, and it's very avant-garde in terms of this new thinking along the lines of localization. She directs this New Rules project and to rebuild independent businesses and transform our financial system. Her most recent book is Big Box Swindle: The True Cost of Mega Retailers and the Fight for America's Independent Businesses. Very, very important work. Gloria Steinem. I know most of you know and love Gloria Steinem, but she doesn't need as much of an introduction. She's, as you know, a celebrated writer and activist who's been involved in feminist and other social justice movements for over 40 years. She's the author of numerous acclaimed books and is the co-founder of New York Magazine and co-founder and editor of Ms. Magazine. She travels in this and other countries as an organizer and lecturer and is a spokeswoman on issues of equality. Thank you very much for coming, all three of you. So first, we're going to hear from Judy.
Is this on? Great. Well, first I'd just like to thank you, Helena, for the beautiful film. And I'm really happy to see how you've used your work with the dogs in such a powerful way. To really show us a different way of life. So one of the things that struck me most about the movie, or was memorable to me, are just the looks of happiness on the people, and with dog people. And I had a similar experience in living for a year in an Eskimo village in Alaska. I've seen that those same happy faces. They were really the happiest people I've ever met in my life, and I feel it's because their happiness and their security did not come from money, but from their community. So it wasn't about belongings; it was about belonging, to a community that really made them happy. And they had no sense of envy. Their civilization that has lasted for thousands of years was really based on cooperation and sharing. So as a young person, this was back in 1969, when I was there, I really contrasted that to our consumer economy, and it really helped me began the foundation really for what my life became the co-founding of BALLE. I really am here to speak more from the perspective of an entrepreneur, because I feel really strongly that it's going to take a change of vision from the business community to build this new economy. And so much of the movie was about relationships and connections, and I think that's just so important. And I lived and worked in the same community for 40 years in my own career. In fact, I lived above the shop, so the old-fashioned way of doing business lived above the White Dog Cafe. And so I had the same values, at work as at home. Practice the golden rule at home, and then some people go to work and golden rules. but when you live and work in the same house, it's very interconnected. And so there was a connection to values and a short distance. As a business person, when I made a decision, I saw every day the people affected by my decisions, whether it was my customers or my employees, my community, or the natural environment in which I live. So I'm more likely to make decisions using my heart as well as my head. And that's one of the principles in our local living economy movement, is this short distance between the business decision maker and those affected. And of course, as businesses grow larger and larger, that distance becomes longer and longer. So most CEOs never see the results of their decisions. And what you don't see, you often don't care about. Yet, of course, in our society, businesses are encouraged to grow, or die. And yet, when you grow, you really lose the connection to the people. So for me, as a business person, I realized I didn't want to grow really big and have a whole chain of white dog cafes because I didn't want to lose those relationships. So I learned to grow in other ways besides material ways, to grow by increasing knowledge, by deepening relationships, by expanding consciousness, by having greater well-being, more happiness, more fun. So I go deeper in my own community. And I think another really important point I want to make here, and that is about the importance of cooperation, that this movement for a new economy is not going to happen without a deep sense of cooperation, which is really very much the opposite of how we're taught here in the United States, especially those of us who are business people. And I had a real transformation in my own career from being competitive to being cooperative. And that came around about my concern for the factory farming of pigs. At the White Dog, we'd bought from local farmers for many years, but I didn't know about how pigs were raised in the industrial system until I read John Robbins' book, Diet for a New America, and learned about how the pigs are kept in these cages and never can move, and they never smell fresh air or sunshine, and they're artificially inseminated, and the babies are taken away prematurely and artificially inseminated again, and so they're pieces of machinery. And this was really, I was outraged by this. This way of treating these mother pigs. So I just came to the kitchen and said, take all the pork off the menu. We're not going to be part of this evil system, because I realized the pork we were serving at the White Dog must come from the system, because it all does, unless you know otherwise. So we went about finding pasture pig, and then I heard about the plight of the cow, and started getting all grass-fed beef, and finally got to the point where I looked at my menu and said, well, we have a cruelty-free menu, and we're the only restaurant in town that's doing this, and this is all about us, and this is going to be about our market niche. And then I thought to myself, well, if you really do care about the pigs, and you care about the environment that's being polluted by this concentration of manure, and you care about the small farmer being driven out of business, and you care about the workers in these slaughterhouses and factory farms, and you care about the consumer who's eating this meat that's full of antibiotics and hormones, then rather than keeping this as your market niche, you'll share these buying practices with your competitors. So that was a real transformational moment for me, because I realized that there's no such thing as one sustainable business, that we can only be part of a sustainable system, and that we have to work in cooperation in order to build that system and build a whole economy based on those values of caring and compassion, concern for other people and for animals and for nature. And so I went about doing that in Philadelphia through a number of nonprofits I started in growing the local food system there. And then I was compelled to start working on a national basis to bring about localization by two things that happened in the fall of 1999. One was the demonstrations in Seattle against the World Trade Organization. And here were all these people saying, we don't want this kind of economy. The labor union leaders, the environmentalists, the farmers, the students, the professors. But no one was articulating a new vision. So we really didn't have a positive vision to put these efforts towards building this new economy that's green and fair. And so then, like days later, we got the news that Ben & Jerry's was sold to Unilever, a multinational corporation. So here was a leader in the socially responsible business movement selling against their will, actually, to Unilever. But then so many other of the models of social responsibility being sold, more recently Stonyfield Farm to Dan & Gilbert, Honest Tea, Coca-Cola, the Body Shop, L'Oreal, and it goes on and on and on. There's this concentration more and more of power, and that the responsible business movement had been working against, really. So I realized that for all the good that the responsible business movement was doing, we were still measuring success by the old paradigm of continuous growth. And as was pointed out in the movie, continuous growth in a finite planet, it can't work. That we're literally destroying the Earth. So that's what, and at the same time, we were really, as a movement, neglecting three really important things. Appropriate scale. At what scale is a business when there's the most quality of relationships? Where we're maximizing relationships, not maximizing profits. We weren't paying attention to place. These national brands weren't connected to place, and we weren't paying attention to ownership. That we really have to have many owners to decentralize ownership in order to have real democracy and justice in our society. So that's what led me to co-found BALLE. And you heard David Corton talk about BALLE, and also Michael Schumann, who wrote Going Local, was on our original board and works for BALLE. He's on our staff now. So BALLE envisions a global economy that's comprised of human-scale, interconnected, local living economies that work in harmony with nature, that support just and democratic societies, that produce basic needs for all people, and foster joyful community life. That's our vision. And we have, at this point, 80 business networks in the United States and Canada, comprised of local independent businesses. And we really connect the dots between the local food movement, the localized renewable energy movement, green building, locally made clothes, local arts and culture, independent media, into this holistic vision of what an economy should be like. So I could go on and on, but I think my time is up. So I'm going to pass this on to Stacy.
Thank you very much, Judy.